Sir, ma'am has also joined.
Okay, shall we start?
Yeah, Kalyan, you can go on.
Hello, everybody. A very good evening. I wholeheartedly welcome all the participants, dignitaries to this webinar on regulatory aspects pertaining to India and the United States. So this webinar is being organized by the Indian Pharmaceutical Association Education Division and Indian Pharmaceutical Association Regulatory Affairs Division. And to take us forward and to deliver their allied content on this, we have two esteemed speakers for today, Dr. Subhash Mandal and Maduri Gupta with us. Now, without any delay, I request the convener of this webinar, Dr. S. Vidyadhara, Chairman of Indian Pharmaceutical Association Education Division, to please give his introductory note. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Kalyan. A very good evening to one and all. On behalf of Indian Pharmaceutical Association, IPA Education Division, and IPA Regulatory Affairs Division, and Chabrol Hanma Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, I take the privilege of inviting you all to the international webinar on drug regulatory affairs, India. And we have two eminent speakers. One is Dr. Subhash C. Mandal, Chairman, IPA Regulatory Affairs Division, who is going to deliver talk on Indian scenario on regulatory concerns, and Dr. Maduri Gupta, who is going to deliver talk on US regulatory scenario today. And as suggested by our national president, Dr. TV Narayana sir, we have conducted several webinars and also pharma quizzes for the benefit of our pharma fraternity during the last 3 months during this particular pandemic time. So we have almost completed 11 programs, and now, as directed by our mentor, Dr. TV Narayana sir, he suggested that why don't we go with a combined team of 2 divisions together to conduct several useful programs for the benefit of our pharma fraternity. As part of that, today we are very happy to inform that IPA Education Division and IPA Regulatory Affairs Division jointly organizing this international webinar on drug regulatory affairs, Indian and US scenario. And at this juncture, I would also like to thank Mr. Umanandan Mishra sir, the Dean Pharma Training Institute, who has introduced such a elite and eminent speaker from United States. She is none other than Mrs. Maduri Gupta, who is going to deliver talk on US scenario on regulatory affairs. And apart from that, our own chairman belonging to regulatory affairs of IPA, Dr. Subhash C. Mandal sir, he is going to deliver his expertise on drug regulatory affairs on Indian and US scenario. So, drug regulatory affairs always had a significant prospect in the field of pharmacy, and its importance is more profound in pandemic situations like this, where multiple nations are involved in developing vaccines. Appropriate regulatory guidelines are essential for carrying out all necessary pharmaceutical operations for the safe and effective use of drugs. With this small introduction, I wish all, all of them for hoping that this will be a great learning experience for all the participants, particularly on present day scenario on drug regulatory affairs in concern with India as well as United States. Now, may I request our mentor and national president, Dr. T.V. Narayana sir, to address and bless all of us on this particular occasion to carry forward with this international webinar. T.V. Narayana sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vidyadhar. First of all, greetings from Indian Pharmaceutical Association as a national president. On my behalf and on behalf of Indian Pharmaceutical Association, I welcome all of you to this international webinar. And with the due respects to Dr. R. Srinivas Garu, President of Chebrolanmaya Group of Institutions, and Dr. C.N. Srinivas Garu, Secretary and Correspondent, another my good friend of Chebrolanmaya Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, and Dr. Vidyadhara, Chairman, IPA Education Division, and also Vice President of IPA. Another my good friend, Dr. Subhash C. Mandal, Chairman, IPA Regulatory Affairs Division, and also Vice President of IPA, who is the senior most regulator in India. And another resource person from US, Dr. Maduri Gupta, and the organizing committee members, Seshidhar, Kalyan, Chakravarti, and all, and participants. Good evening, everybody. At the outset, it gives me immense pleasure to participate in this international webinar organized by IPA Education Division and IPA Regulatory Affairs Division on drug regulatory affairs in Indian and US scenario. And I'm very happy the IPA is very actively engaged during this COVID-19 pandemic by organizing various seminars, webinars, workshops, training programs. And in this, Education Division is forefront. My congratulations to IPA Education Division Chairman, Dr. Vidyadhar and his team for organizing wonderful activities throughout the country. And another important aspect is regulatory affairs area. Subhash Mandal has organized multiple seminars with eminent personalities for in Bengal and other areas. And again, a thought was given, why don't we both together can organize? Actually, it is a 1 year back idea. IPA Education Division and IPA Regulatory Affairs Division want to organize a combined seminar for a 2 days seminar. We planned 1 year back, but due to this COVID-19 pandemic, we have to change as usual on par with the other areas. We changed and organized this combined one. Really, I am very happy. Mandal, Subhash Mandal has come forward and joined with IPA Education Division. And Kim is ready to share his expertise to our teachers and also the students. And even I should thank Mr. Umanandan Mishra, who is our another good friend from Pharma Training Institute, who introduced Dr. Maduri Gupta to share her expertise on how the regulations in the US play a major role and how it is going to change the future of our pharma in future. And I think the topic is unique and useful to all the participants. This is the area deals with regulations from discovery stage to development stage to marketing stage. Every step and every process is involved in this regulation, and a lot of many registrations are coming into picture, and the clinical trials also. Every step on this process of drug development, it is under the regulations. The division, this particular area ensures products are manufactured and distributed in compliance with the appropriate legislation to protect the public health by controlling the safety and efficacy. That is what main aim and motto of coming out with these regulations. Everybody knows to come out with one new chemical entity, it takes 10 to 15 years of research and $1 to $2 billion of expenses. And out of 10,000 molecules screened, we don't know how many are coming into the market. One may come or may not come. That was the scenario when you are coming out with a new chemical entity. That's why these regulations are important at each and every stage. It minimizes the time factor and also saves a lot of money if you are correctly planned implement these regulations in each and every step of discovery, development, and marketing stages. And in India, we have this robust regulatory mechanism system. I think around 1,550 state regulators were there in India, and around 500 plus central regulators were there in department CDSCO. And these regulations are changing from time to time. Still, we have to come out with the regulations for the vaccine, how the new vaccine has to come. Somebody says it is a fast track process is coming. You can come out with the phase 1 and phase 2 bypassing phase 3, and still ambiguity was there. That's how these regulations are changing very fast from time to time. We have to update. Particularly the US FDA guidelines, wherever our exports are concerned, they insist for US FDA, knowledge in US FDA and other TKMHRA, TGA, and all these guidelines of each and individual country was there. So it is better to have a knowledge on these regulations. Why means our syllabus is not covered with these regulation parts. Whatever we studied is a good old days syllabus. What is the latest changes, latest updates? Only from the experts like Mandal and Dr. Maduri Gupta, our teachers can learn where we can disseminate this knowledge to our students. That's what I would like to thank all these experts, because this was not covered in our syllabus. The latest changes we have to undergo, attend seminars or webinars to update ourselves. That is one of the advantage. And even I have come across with several of our students who completed, passed out UG or PG. When you ask what is dossier, there is no voice for them as a foreign word. When we ask what is DMF, what is ANDA and NDA, now people are telling. Earlier they never used to tell what is ANDA, what is NDA also. So these are the areas we have to learn. And now recently, CTD, Common Technical Document, even filing on ECTD. What are the advantages of using all this? These are the areas our students should be equipped. And those years, again, it is going to play a crucial role in the development stages. These are the areas our students and our teachers should equip themselves and get updated themselves. That's what I want to advise the participants of today's webinar. So I don't want to take much of your time because both the experts are available now. We want to hear more from these experts. With these few words of introductory words for the inauguration, I appreciate IPA Education Division and IPA Regulatory Affairs Division for organizing such a wonderful webinar on a useful topic to the teachers and students. I wish all the participants success and gain some knowledge, update ourselves. That's what I want to wish from my part. So thank you, Dr. Vidyadhara, for giving me the
sir.
opportunity.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. So over to Kalyan.
Thank you, Dr. TV Narayana, for your insight. And as he truly said, I would like to once again recite by saying that whatever the advancements and whatever the updates that are being happening in the regular day world, only way in which we can be aware of them is by attending such kind of webinars where we have eminent personnel who can talk about them, explain about them, and give us a very good insight about them. So that is what this whole webinar is targeting at. So in order to take this further, now I request my colleague, Dr. A. Pramod Kumar, to introduce speaker, one of the speaker for today, Dr. Subhash Mandal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kalan, for that. At the outset, I thank the chairmen of IPA Education Division and IPA Regulatory Affairs Division for giving me this opportunity to introduce today's eminent speaker, Dr. Subhash C. Mandal. Sir completed his PG and PhD in pharmacy degree from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and has contributed 12 chapters published by reputed publishers like American Chemical Society, Informa Healthcare, which both belongs from US, and Springer, etc. He has, to his credit, 58 publications in different international journals. Dr. Mandal has made more than 100 scientific presentations at various national and international conferences. Sir started his career as a teacher and has experience in industry in regulatory affairs. He is serving the Directorate of Drugs Control, Government of West Bengal for more than 25 years and presently as Assistant Director. He has served in several important committees and task forces formed by different government and international agencies like Southeast Asian Regional Farm Forum, CDSCO, Ayush, Farm Coordination Program of India, etc. Dr. Mandal is a member of editorial board and reviewer of several journals of international reputation. He is an examiner of several universities. He has worked with team for developing different documents like inspectors, manual for inspectors, approved laboratories, and GMP guidelines. Dr. Mandal is an active member of IPA for more than 35 years and has served the Bengal State Branch as executive member, joint secretary, honorary secretary. He is an instrumental figure in the Bengal branch, receiving the Best Branch Award 7 times, including 2 hats, and Special Recognition Award for 2 occasions. He served Central Executive Committee as its member for more than 18 years and is presently Vice President and Chairman for Regulatory Affairs Divisions of IP. So with this brief introductory note, I request Sir to deliver the session on regulatory affairs. Over to you, sir.
So thank you, Dr. Pramod, for your kind introduction. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Vidyadhara and Dr. Narayana, who made our dream a real one. As already Dr. Narayana has mentioned that we have planned to organize several programs jointly by 2 divisions more than 1 year back, but because of some different reasons, it will not be materialized. So today is a historical day for both of us, for IPA, that 2 divisions are jointly organizing one webinar on an important topic. So my topic here is my topic: the drug regulatory mechanism in India and career in regulatory affairs. I have chosen this topic as I have been told that most of the participants are students and the teachers. And from my experience as a regulator as well as examiner of different universities, I have find out some lacuna in the course curriculum, and there is a lack of energy, enthusiasm amongst the teachers to teach this subject. Basically, everybody considered this as a dry subject. So let us try to make it more interesting for you. And this is an elementary things. I'll not enter any new development in the regulatory affair. I'll just tell you what is the regulatory mechanism, what is the structure of regulatory mechanism in our country, as well as the different some examples, the perception of regulatory personnel and teachers also. Well, these are the agendas. I fixed up agendas like this: understanding regulatory sciences. Well, you must point out this point, this understanding regulatory science. So you should not consider regulatory affair just as a law, and this is an agency to law enforcing agency. So whatever you do, there is a scientific basis, and on the scientific basis, the legislation has been framed by competent authority, and the regulators are there to implement this legislation. Second agenda is regulatory organization. I will tell you what is the exact regulatory organization in our country, and third one, opportunities of regulatory pharmacists. Fourth agenda is regulatory sciences, how it is supporting regulatory affairs. Then facts of RA personnel, regulatory affair personnel. Finally, I will conclude it. So before I enter into this presentation, I would say the main objective of regulatory affair, I mean regulatory mechanism of any country, especially for our country, to ensure quality, safe and efficacious medicine at an affordable price. That is also very important issue we have to remember. So now I am coming to the core issues. The regulatory science, how regulatory science is contributing in the regulatory affair, and then how regulatory affair is contributing monitoring these drugs in our country. So regulators try to understand. Here is a definition of regulatory science. The regulatory science is a scientific discipline consisting of regulatory science is a scientific discipline consisting of the development and application of scientific methods, tools, approaches, and other relevant process derived from various scientific disciplines used to support regulatory and other policy objectives. In short, this regulatory science, it provides the inputs like development, application of scientific tools, approaches and other relevant process on which the regulator who are in the helm of affair of framing the legislation, they are framing the legislation of a country. And regulatory science consists of the application of science to support policy, notably regulatory objective. These are the definitions I have taken from this publication. Uh, Now, let us see regulatory science versus regulatory affairs. Regulatory affairs and regulatory law refers to the administrative and legal aspect of regulation, whereas the regulatory science is focused on the regulation scientific underpinning and concern rather than the regulation promulgation, implementation, compliance, or enforcement. In short, the regulatory science given the input for framing the regulation, and regulatory affair is that involves the administrative and legal aspect of regulation and its implementation and compliance uh, of the legislation. So let us see here the total framework of the regulation in our country. At the headquarter, it is regulated by CDSCO, Central Drug Standard Control Organization, having its headquarter at New Delhi. Under the CDSCO, there are 6 zonal offices at South Zone, North Zone, East Zone, West Zone, Hyderabad and Ahmedabad. These 6 zones, and there are 7 sub-zones at Bangalore, Varanasi, Goa, Jammu, Indore, Guwahati and Baddi. And there are 13 ports, both seaport and airports, from where our regulators are monitoring the quality of medicines, especially import and exports. the port office at Ahmedabad, port at Chennai, airport at Chennai, then Bangalore, Hyderabad, Goa, Cochin, Delhi, Calcutta port as well as Calcutta airport. Similarly, Mumbai airport, Mumbai seaport also. These are all different ports. Some of the officers, this office is headed by one of the assistant drug controller. Under him, there are number of drug inspectors and other staff. Similarly, to control the quality of the drug, there are
Subha sir, can you unmute, sir?
yes.
Yes, sir. You're audible now.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, sir.
So there is a little bit technical hitch.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Let us see what are the responsibilities, basic responsibility of CDSCO. In short, they are responsible for controlling the import of drugs, approval of new drugs and clinical trials. This clinical trial is now a hot topic. So everybody is waiting when one vaccine will come to the market for use after completing the clinical trials. Then conducting meetings of DCC and DTAB. DCC is basically a committee consisting of all drug controllers of different states and the central drug control. And whenever CDSCO want to introduce any new rule or they want to amend one rule, they place it before one DCC meeting. If DCC approve it, that will go to DTAB in general. And our IPA is the one of the professional organizations having its representative in the drug technical advisory board for framing of drug legislation in our country, and our national president Dr. TV Narayana is our representative. He used to attend the DTAB. If DTAB approve this any proposal, that will go to ministry, and ultimately if ministry approved it, it goes for gazette notification and it comes into force. Finally, the approval of certain licenses as central licensing approving authority is exercised by the CDSCO. Here it's in very short. Again, we can recapitulate the role of CDSCO: approval of new drug and clinical trial, import registration and licensing, license approving of blood banks, LVPs, vaccines, rDNA products, some medical devices, then amendment of Drug and Cosmetics Act and rule. This is the responsibility of CDSCO. Banning of drugs and cosmetics on the basis of input from the pharmacovigilance system of our country as well as other countries. Grant of test licenses, personal licenses, NOCs for export. These are another responsibility. Then testing of new drug. This is also another responsibility of CDSCO. Now I am coming to the 7 statutory laboratory and their roles in monitoring the quality of the drugs in our country. The first laboratory is Central Drug Laboratory situated at Kolkata, who are responsible for testing and monitoring the quality of drugs imported in India and the drugs manufactured by our company which are available in our country. And this CDL is the affiliate authority in matters of disputes relating to quality of drugs. If there is any dispute regarding the quality, the report of the director of CDL is the conclusive report that will accept by the court. Next laboratory, Central Drug Testing Laboratory, CDTL, which is situated in Chennai. They are also conducting research and analysis of the drugs and cosmetics. The another CDTL is situated at Hyderabad. They are also working similarly like CDTL at Chennai. But Mumbai CDTL is something different. Apart from analyzing the drugs, pharmaceutical and cosmetics, they are also responsible for conducting testing of medical devices. So this is another important issue you must know. The RDTL, Regional Drug Testing Laboratory situated at Guwahati, they are also responsible for testing and analysis of drugs and cosmetics. The RDTL at Chandigarh, they are also doing the same job, but for northern zone of CDSCO and sub zones at Baddi, Jammu, Varanasi, and the Delhi airport. And this laboratory also additionally notified as the statutory laboratory for the state of Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Union Territories of Chandigarh, Delhi, and other offices. And our most important laboratory is Central Drug Laboratory, CDL, which is situated at CRI Kasauli, Central Research Institute Kasauli. Why they are more important? Because they are testing the sera solution of serum protein intended for injections, vaccines, toxins, antigen, antitoxins, sterilized surgical ligature and sutures, bacteriophages, including oral polio vaccines. Here is a difference with the test of drugs and cosmetics in another laboratory. When when a drug is manufactured by a company, it is the responsibility of the company to ensure its quality, and their test report, after generating their test report, they can release their product. But in case of vaccine, after manufacturing each and every batches, the manufacturer should conduct the test, and they simultaneously required to send it to Kasauli for conducting test and analysis. After getting their report, the manufacturers are able to release these products. So each and every batch of vaccines are being tested by CDL Kasauli. Now I am coming to the opportunities of regulatory pharmacist. So pharmacy students are there. They might be waiting to hear from me about the opportunities. So there are opportunities both in private sector as well as the government sectors. In private sector, there are number of industries, and because of India is now exporting a number of products to about 200 to 50 countries, and they might be they might have their own regulation, and our regulatory personnel who are involved in manufacturing company who are responsible for exporting the drug, they should know the rules and regulations of other countries. And nowadays the regulatory personnel is most required by the industry for export. Let us see what are the opportunities in government sector. In Central Drug Standard Control Organizations, there are several posts which are being held by the pharmacist, starting from Drug Controller General, Joint Drug Controller, Deputy Drug Controller, Assistant Drug Controller, Drug Inspectors, Assistant Drug Inspectors, and Technical Assistants. They belongs to the pharmacy community. They must be at least graduate in pharmacy. Apart from that, they require at least 3 years experience in manufacturing and testing. Testing in some states, they require even 5 years experience. Generally, the input through as a assistant drug inspector or drug inspectors in the Central Drug Control Administration. Now, where they will work? Maybe at CDSCO headquarters Delhi, CDSCO different zones, East zone at Kolkata, West Mumbai, South Chennai, North Ghaziabad and 2 other zones, Ahmedabad and Hyderabad. There are also different sub-zones like Goa, Baddi, Bangalore. There are several such sub-zones, and they may work as at ports like Chennai, Cochin, Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, and so on. Similar to the state drug control, central drug control, each and every state and union territory, they have their own set of drug control administration with defined role. Their manpower consists like this: every state authority is headed by a director or a commissioner. Under him, there are a number of persons working as a joint director or commissioner, additional director or deputy commissioner, or assistant director or commissioner, or senior inspector of drug or inspector of drug. In most of the cases, entry is through inspector of drug. Other posts are generally by promotion, but there are some opportunity for lateral entry in the higher post. Well, the scope in central drug laboratory. Central drug laboratories are headed by a director. Under him, there are deputy director, assistant director, government analyst, senior analyst, junior analyst, laboratory technician. Number of opportunities are there for the pharmacist, but in this case, not only the pharmacist, pharmacy as well as the pharmacy, science graduates are eligible for this post. Now coming to the state drug control, having the similar type of structure, and you have lot of opportunities to work in state drug control laboratory. Now let us see what are the different regulatory agencies and their guidelines. Few examples to understand that each and every country, they have their own regulatory agencies and their own guidelines. See here, India having its Central Drug Control, the USA having its FDA, United States regulatory agencies MHRA, Japan have the regulatory agency PMDA, Australia TGA, South Africa MCA, China SFDA, Canada Health Canada, and so on. Other countries, they have their own regulatory agencies. Let us see one very important guideline framed by ICH, International Commission for Harmonization. They are generally developed some documents which are generally followed by the countries, developed countries like USA, Europe, and Japan. Of late, a few other countries has also joined in ICH to make a harmonized way. And but India is also associate member, as well as India is also part of another organization, that is CERN, Southeast Asian Regional Authorities. There are a number of documents. My friends, student friends, for an interview, the interviewer may call you, may ask you what is Q1A or Q1A. Well, you must know that Q1A to Q1F are related to stability testing of drug. Similarly, Q7 is good manufacturing practices. There are a lot of such documents and guidance which are being followed by different countries, and this is uniform in different countries. Another few important guidelines which is in India, like Schedule M, good manufacturing practice. In ICH, good manufacturing practice is Q7. In India, good clinical practice GCP. In ICH, this document is called as E6, which prescribes GCP. New drug and clinical trial rule in India, and another legislation in ICH E1 to E18. Now let us see how regulatory science supporting regulatory affair. So it is not only the responsibility of the regulators to enforce the law, but there must have several scientific background. Well, if you were working in a government sector, you may be entrusted for looking after manufacturing units. So you must know the each and every aspect of setting up a pharmaceutical factory up to selling of medicines. So you might be aware about what are the criteria to select a site to set up an industry. Similarly, how to construct a building. This is also very important, because when you will visit one factory, you should know a few terminologies, like the corner, the joint between the wall and the floor and roof should be coped. If you do not know what is coped, it will be very difficult for auditing. Then another terminology is frequently being told, that is, windows and doors are flashed. You must be knowing what about flashed. Similarly, you must be knowing about the good manufacturing practice for implementation of GMP in a pharmaceutical factory for producing good quality medicine, and you should know who are the personnel eligible to manufacture or quality control or quality assurance of pharmaceutical product, and you are responsible for approving the competent technical staff. Who are the competent technical staff? Those are the personnel having their educational background and experiences approved by drug control authority, who are responsible and are eligible to signing the document for manufacturing and quality control. Finally, you are also responsible for monitoring the cells. Let us coming to the quality control. Whenever you visit one factory, to visit the quality control section, you might find the plant and machinery which are actually required or what are in place. What are the deficiencies? You have to suggest them. Otherwise, if it complies, you must know what are the requirements. And you must know the personnel, what could be their educational qualification as well as the what could be their training, and you will be responsible for approval of competent technical staff. You again be responsible for implementing good laboratory practice to evaluate whether good laboratory practice are being followed by a quality control laboratory. So you must know what is the requirement of GLP, good laboratory practice. Now I am coming to the quality assurance, a relatively new area, and there is a lot of requirement of pharmaceutical personnel in this area for quality assurance. Here is the definition of quality assurance. It is a combination of manufacturing and quality control competence to ensure quality medicine, and it is intended to comply GMP, GLP and GCP. Well, in central drug control, you may be entrusted for dealing with rules of import and export, to regulate import of the Drug and Cosmetics Act. Similarly, recently introduced of a new provision for registration of a manufacturing premises of foreign drug manufacturer. So now if any manufacturer, they want to export their product to India, in that case, their facility should be approved by Drug Control Authority of India. Similarly, you will be responsible for approving the individual drug which could be imported to India. This regulation is in force from 2001. Issue of CPP, that means, which is very simply told as WHO GMP certifications. It is not mandatory in our country, but it is an indicator of the quality you are maintaining in your manufacturing factory. And some of the countries, other than developed countries, some developing and underdeveloped countries, they required one CPP certification for importing into their country. Well, till now we are talking about the modern medicines, but if you are in the government regulatory agency, you may be interested to look after the other system of medicines like homeopathy, Ayurvedic, including Siddha, Unani and Tiv system. In case of homeopathy, you may be acquainted with Schedule M, that is applicable for manufacturing modern medicine. But in case of homeopathy, Schedule M1 is applicable, that is the good manufacturing practice for the homeopathy manufacturing unit is prescribed under Schedule M1 in Drug and Cosmetics Rule. Similarly, there are set criteria for manufacturing quality control, and the personnel who are involved in the homeopathy manufacturing, that is also prescribed in the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, and selling of homeopathy is also under control. Anybody want to sell the homeopathy, they required to obtain a drug license from the Drug Control Authority. The next system is Ayurvedic and Siddha system. Again, the manufacturing quality control, good manufacturing practice, all are given, prescribed in the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, and the good manufacturing practice in Ayurveda Siddha is known as Schedule T. Recently, this Schedule T have been amended, and this becomes more stringent than earlier. And selling of Ayurvedic medicine does not require any license. You can sell Ayurvedic medicine from any place. And in case of approval of the Ayurvedic medicines, it does not require the clinical trial and preclinical trial, which we used to conduct in case of modern medicine. But there are 84 books. If any ingredient mentioned in that books with some indication, that can be utilized as a component of a particular formulation. And besides this, there are some books who are which given the monograph of different individual herbs as well as the formulation, like these are all included within Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India, Ayurvedic Formulary of India, and Siddha Formulary of India. Unani and Tiv system, this is also a similar structure, but requirement is different. Here, the good manufacturing practice, Schedule T, Schedule T is also applicable, and in case of selling Unani medicine, does not require in any licenses. And similarly, we have one national formulary of Unani medicine. Retail sale, what we call as the chemist and druggist shop, the retail sale of drugs, this require licenses from the state licensing authority, and the medicines to be dispensed under the supervision of a pharmacist. Our country have more than 10 lakhs of such medicine shop, and at least 10 lakhs pharmacists are required for managing this shop, if not more. records for purchase and sales to be maintained by the pharmacist. Pharmacists are responsible for storage, dispensing, and patient counseling in the these are all responsibility of the pharmacist. Let us see what are the other specialized area. Blood banks. I think in our course curriculum, this is not being covered very much. Medical devices, cosmetics, new product approval, trial site inspection, which is related with clinical trial. So let us see individually each of these components, the blood banks. Part 12B of the Schedule F of Drug and Cosmetic Act has prescribed what are the requirements for premises from where the blood bank can be operated, how to collect, from whom it can be collected, and its quality control methodology, and who are the personnel eligible for managing and maintaining blood banks. And one very important point I can tell you that 5 mandatory tests are required for whole human blood. What are those 5 mandatory tests? Firstly, HIV-1, HIV-2, HBsAg, HCV, VDRL, and malaria. These are the 5 important tests you must conduct in case of a whole human blood. Apart from that whole human blood, there are blood products and blood components. Several blood components are being manufactured by prepared by blood banks. It has different technologies. In very high-end technologies, apheresis are being utilized in case of separating different component of the blood. Sometimes whole human blood is not required, only a part of the portion of the blood can serve the purpose. Now I am coming to the controlling of medical devices. These are all requirement, manufacturing, quality control, good manufacturing practice, all are prescribed in the drug regulation. Recently, one separate legislation has been passed by the government of India, where around 2,500 medical devices are being controlled by the drug control authorities, starting from thermometer, sphygmomanometer to scanning, brain scan machine. All are under supervision of the Drug Control Administration. So you might be aware about the requirement and the composition and component of these medical devices. Now I am coming to the cosmetics. Cosmetics also covered by this rule, Drug and Cosmetics Act. Its manufacturing, quality control, good manufacturing practices. These good manufacturing practices of manufacturing cosmetics is called as Schedule M3. In case of modern medicine, it is Schedule M. In case of homeopathy, it is Schedule M1, and in case of manufacturing practice for cosmetics, it is M2, and medical devices, it is M3. And the standards of cosmetics, what could be the standard of the finished formulation of the cosmetics? One survey reveals that on an average 9 cosmetics are being used by a lady, Indian lady. It is a study says that. So 9 such cosmetics are being used by an Indian lady. So we must be very stringent on its quality, and your quality is also being prescribed in Bureau of Indian Standards, and you cannot use any type of colors. The list of dyes and colors and pigments permitted to be used in cosmetics and soaps are given under IS 4707 part 1. So my friends, you must be aware about this terminology. IS some 4707 and some other BIS, and this list of colors to be used in cosmetic is being given in the schedule Q. So there are large number of schedule Q. My student friends, you please remember which schedule prescribe which one. So schedule, whenever anybody asks you, well, how can you a certain this pigment or color can be utilized in cosmetics, so you will suggest him please refer the schedule Q. If it is there, you could use it, otherwise you cannot. A new product approval, this is a very core issue. I think this will be taken over by the next speaker, and this will take another lecture of 1 hour. A few days back, I have delivered a lecture on this issue, so I like to skip it during this new product approval. Before approval, the authority required to go through the result of clinical trial, and during conducting clinical trial, you must ensure the proper subject recruitment, approval of ethics committee, approval by CDSCO and PSUR. These are all some terminology you must be knowing. The trial site inspection, this is the major responsibility of the CDSCO. Sometimes they request the state authority, and jointly they visit the trial sites and ensure whether the new drug and clinical trial rules are being implemented. I have experience on clinical trial site inspection, and I have noted that very small issues which they consider as small issues, those are actually real issues. Say for example, whenever I visited one clinical trial site, they were following the rules and regulation of ICH, but they are not aware about the legislation of the in our country. So it is the basic requirement. At first, you comply with the rules and regulation of your country. In addition to that, you can follow the FDA regulation or ICH regulation or any type of regulation. Enforcement of other related law. Apart from this drugs and cosmetics role, you are also responsible for implementing drug price control order, Narcotic Drug and Psychotropic Substances Act, IPR, patent 2005, trademark, etc. Then Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisement Act 1954. These are all the legislation you might be aware, and you are responsible to implement this. So I am coming to price control mechanism. In our country, we have a legislation, that is the DPCO, drug price control order, and it is being implemented by the Department of Pharmaceuticals, and specifically NPPA, National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. Earlier in 74, around 330 drug price of around 337 drugs were being controlled by the government. Gradually, the number of the price control is reduced up to 2002, when it reaches to a list number, that is 34. Again in 2013, because of lot of legal battle between the health activists and the government, ultimately government has accepted that the drugs mentioned in the existing essential list of essential medicines will be monitored. So in 2013, 348 essential drugs are being included in DPCO, and their price are under control. Now it is the number is 376. So apart from research, manufacturing, testing, marketing, we are also responsible to monitor the price of the medicine, so that it can be affordable by our people. Uh, Now I am coming to the Narcotic Drug and Psychotropic Substances Act. This is a very stringent legislation to deal with cultivation, production, distribution, and sale of narcotic drugs and psychotropic drugs. Say, for example, you want to cultivate poppy. If you want to cultivate poppy, you require to get the permission from the central government. Until date, only 3 states are eligible to get this license, that is Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan, if I am not wrong. None other state cannot cultivate poppy, and neither they can produce poppy related products. And the punishment of violation of the narcotic drug and psychotropic substances is severe. Severe and separate license is required for manufacturing as well as the selling of the narcotic drugs. IPR patent issue, this is very important issue nowadays. Whether any new drug will be available in our country or not, that will depend on this IPR. Earlier in our country, the Indian Patent Act 1970 was there, and in 1970 Act, India is not allowing the product patent. But because of this development since mid 80s, in 2005, the India amended its patent act and patent law, and there is a paradigm shift from process patent to product patent, and the protection, earlier it was 7 years, now it extended up to 20 years, and there are some other mechanisms to extend it which are being adopted by very big multinationals. There are two school of thoughts. What we are thinking? There are two schools. One group, they thought this product patent will encourage the research, and another group are thinking it will help in price escalation and arm twisted by the big players. So I am not in a position to conclude what is right, but it is up to you. You decide which one is right. Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisement Act. You will see in the TV and newspapers, there are a lot of advertisement that we can cure with this drug, we can cure HIV with the drug, but you cannot claim you can cure HIV, because under this act there is a list of diseases which cannot be cured, and you cannot claim we can cure these diseases. This your claim as well as the misleading advertisement are also punishable, but very unfortunately this punishment is very low. Presently it is 1,000 or 10,000 rupees or maybe 1 year imprisonment. But very unfortunately, I haven't seen anybody is punished with this law, because the manufacturers, they have their money power. They drag this case in the court, one court to another court, and ultimately it lost its relevance. Another important issue, that is the pharmacovigilance. In short, to monitor the adverse drug reaction, ADR monitoring of drugs which are available in the market. So India has set up one mechanism for pharmacovigilance, which is known as the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, having its headquarters at New Delhi and its National Coordination Center at Ghaziabad. It is working under different committees. The topmost committee is the steering committee. Next is working committee. Working committee is working in between steering committee and 3 more committees like signal review panel, core training panel, quality review panel. Working group is getting inputs from these 3 committee and recommending their recommendation for implementations to the steering committee. I am one of the fortunate pharmacists. I served this committee for 3 years and tried my best to contribute in this area. So under this NCC, there are a number of adverse drug reaction monitoring centers, mainly in medical colleges and at the regional office of CDSCO. And you being the healthcare professional or a patient, you can also report if you find any adverse drug reaction. There is a reporting format which is available in the website. You can also report, and here is the scope for the pharmacist, because doctors are busy and they are not interested to find out the ADRs of the drug whichever he himself prescribed. So he is not interested. So it is the person, the pharmacist, who knows the medicines and who has the time to talk with the patient. They are the right person and contribute in this area by filling up one reporting format. Well, here is a notification, Gazette notification, which was published in 2016. The core issue is this: each and every manufacturing firm should have their own pharmacovigilance team, which will be headed by a medical officer or a pharmacist trained in pharmacovigilance, and they will also be responsible PSUR, periodic safety update review, during the phase 4. And it is the summary, which are the areas which are involving regulatory affair: the research, then manufacturing, then quality control, then quality assurance, then clinical trial, then hospital pharmacy, community pharmacy, marketing, then homeopathy, Ayurvedic, then immunity, blood banks, then cosmetics, COPP, new products, import and export, medical devices, and selling. The 18 components, at least 18 components you have to monitor being a regulator in government sector. But in case of private sector, in industry, you might be entrusted to a particular job to make dossier for submission for export like this. So your opportunity is huge in government sector regulation. So let us see a few facts about the regulatory affair professionals. I have taken these from the first one. According to the 2002 North American survey, approximately 60% of professional holds at least a master degree, and nearly 20% have doctoral degree. It is published in Science Career during 2007. Next one, it was published in Science during September 2010. You can remember that time there was a huge economic recession in US and throughout the globe. So even at that time, regulatory personnel, they are getting their huge, quantifiable salary. Their salary never been reduced, and it is up to this quantity. My next speaker can highlight here. And here is a quote from a regulatory person known as Stella Jones. She was working in a company. What she says: the most interesting aspect of my position center on the opportunity to constantly gain new scientific, medical, and policy knowledge. Learning is not only great fun, it is also satisfying from professional and personal standpoint. That should be the motto of a regulatory personnel. Well, now let us see what regulatory affair provides to you. Regulatory affairs covers a vast area. No need to explain, as I have already explained during my presentation. It needs expertise in different arena. different arena and giving exposure to a variety of specialization, tremendous opportunity throughout the globe. So this is the time to give some concluding remarks. My first concluding remarks is regulatory science is the foundation stone of regulatory affairs. Next one, Indian regulatory mechanism is sturdy and comparable with the counterparts. Quite good opportunity for regulatory professional in government as well as private sector. Regulatory profession is rewarding. Course curriculum requires to be amended as per the existing social requirement. One of those is IPR should be included in their curriculum, as well as the regulatory requirement for other countries should be included in the existing course curriculum. And it is required to taught seriously during course of pharmacy studies. I again repeat this. This is my experience. This subject is being considered as a dry subject. My friends, believe me, it has tremendous scientific backup. Until unless you have tremendous knowledge on scientific issues, it is very really difficult to implement the regulation in a country. And profession is exciting to me. I am at the verge of my career, so I can say it is very exciting to me, and it will be exciting to you also. And it gives you satisfaction being a part of safeguarding mechanism of public health. This is also give you satisfaction that we are directly contributing to the health care of our country. So I wish this will be the new normal for you all. So this is all about my presentation. I am ready to answer your questions. So thank you very much for listening my long talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your information that you have shared with us. We would, before we finish off your session, we have a very few questions for you. After you answer these questions, we'll move to the next speaker. Is it okay, sir?
Oh, okay.
The first question that I would like to ask you is, as a part of your presentation, you made a small presentation on Indian GMP and ICH GMP.
Okay.
Sir, if there is a GMP, if there is a widely accepted ICH GMP, then what is the difference? Is there any difference between the Indian GMP and ICH GMP?
Well, there is a little difference between Indian and ICH GMP, but ICH is not mandatory. Indian GMP is mandatory in our country, but ICH, if you comply ICH GMP, your people will consider your quality is more better.
Sir, in case if there is a ICH GMP, then what factors are responsible for creating this Indian GMP, sir? Is there anything like that?
Well, it is a very complicated issue. Our regulators as well as our administrator, they can answer this.
Okay. And the next question is, the certificate of a pharmaceutical product, CCP.
Okay.
Why is it not made mandatory, sir?
Again, this answer is not lying with me. This is lying with the policymakers, the politicians.
Okay. And the last question, sir. Sir, can we claim Ayurvedic products for new indications without the requirement for clinical trials?
Well, till date, there is no requirement of clinical trial in case of launching any Ayurvedic product. It is optional till date.
Okay, till date it is optional.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir. These were the questions that we had for you. And we thank you so much for spending your time with us, spending your knowledge with us. And we are also glad that you, IPA Education Division and RA Division had successfully organized this.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, let us move ahead. And now I would request another colleague of mine, Dr. B. Venkateswara Rao, to introduce the next speaker of the day. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kalyan. Indeed, it's my great pleasure to introduce today's eminent speaker, Mrs. Maduri Gupta. Maduri ma'am is having more than 30 years of pharma industry experience with around 15 years in regulatory affairs. Currently, she is working as Associate Director, Regulatory Affairs, Aviva Drug Delivery Systems include an apotex company, USA. She is having the professional experience as Associate Director, Global Regulatory Affairs, apotex, and she worked in Ranbaxy, Actavis, and apotex in various areas of R&D and quality assurance, and now in regulatory affairs. Madhuri ji is having different roles and responsibilities in various pharma industries, and she is serving as a regulatory official for Aviva Drug Delivery Systems. And she has done her master's in biochemistry from Alcor Science College, and Madam pursued regulatory affairs and quality assurance 3 years degree course from York University, Toronto. She is a certified professional from RAPS USA since 2006 onwards. And Madhuri ji has also attended several conferences like AAM CMC workshop with FDA and industry. And she also attended workshop on ICH Q8, Q9, and Q10 guidelines conducted by ICH in Ottawa, Canada. And she also attended workshop on quality by design for analytical methods conducted by PSG in Toronto, Canada. She also attended CSPS conference on quality by design and bioequivalence. And without much delay, I would like to invite today's eminent speaker, Madhuri Gupta ji, to deliver her topic over the regulatory affairs scenario in USA. And over to you, ma'am. And thanks a lot for accepting our invitation for this webinar.
Thank you, Dr. B. Venkateswara. It is my pleasure to be here and to help the industry as well as the students. This is my time to give back to the community. So I really appreciate this opportunity that has been given to me. And I thank Mishra ji, UN Mishra sir. He is my mentor, and he introduced me to you folks. So I'm very thankful to him. And I would like to thank Dr. Vidyadhar, Dr. Narayana, and Dr. Pramod for organizing this and the introduction, as well as Dr. Subhash Mandal. It was a great scenario with the Indian regulatory affairs and the situation there with CDSCO. I'm really happy that I attended that webinar of yours, and it gave me some good knowledge because I never explored that area. So thanks so much. And I will start with answering one of your questions that came on the ICH as well as the GMP guidelines. So I would like to clarify here is that the ICH is Indian Council of Harmonization, and it is with three countries. They come together and they come up with tripartite guidelines. They're called tripartite guidelines. And these guidelines are very well adopted all across the jurisdictions throughout the world. And based on these guidelines, country-specific guidelines are made. So the ICH Q7 guidelines on GMP is a global guideline, and depending on different countries, they can adopt directly those guidelines, or they can make their own guidelines using that guideline and make certain modifications. So I hope that answers the question. And now I'm gonna start my sharing my screen here to start my presentation. All right, so I'll start here. So today's talk is going to be on regulatory affairs in USA and how the US regulations are evolved and what are those requirements for NDA and ANDAs. So I will be mainly focusing only on the drugs and then their regulations, and then the process of how FDA um, gets those applications, and what is the review process, and what is your involvement as a regulatory affairs professional. And it is a very exciting field, as Dr. Subhash already mentioned. And I will reiterate the fact that it is of like immense pleasure for me also to be serving the industry and serving the community, to be a part of regulatory affairs. And it is a very specialized field. And as he mentioned, it's like overall picture, he said that there are more than 20 areas wherein you can enter, and I'll be focusing on just the drugs, and you will see how much potential is there for the regulatory affairs professional. I'm not going to go into details of my biography because Dr. Venkateshwara already explained it. I will just emphasize on the fact that the RAPS certificate, which is called Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, I would recommend you guys to go on their website and see how much information is there for regulatory affairs professional. And you can have different certificates. It's called RAP. And then once you say that you are a RAC professional, you will be very well recognized in this area. And they have different courses for USA, for Europe, as well as for Canada. So in today's agenda, I'm going to be giving a little bit of introduction, then the role of regulatory affairs in industry, and then the global agencies or authorities that are involved in drug regulations and approvals. Some of those will be overlapping with what Dr. Mandal has already explained it to you, but I think it is good to listen again with different perspective. Then I'll just mention some brief US evolution of the regulations, then how they evolved in specific to US, and how FDA came into picture. And then the Code of Federal Regulations, we mostly refer them as CFRs, which are related to drugs. The FDA's organizational structure, very brief. Then I'll speak on drug development process very briefly, because I'm sure you guys are already aware of. Then I'll talk some requirements for NDA and ANDAs, and what are those differences, and how you guys as a technical, coming from a technical background of pharmacy graduates or research scholars, can make a difference. Then the review and approval process of the NDA and ANDA, and then I'll go with the conclusion. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
it is
Okay.
audible.
Yeah, thank you. I thought there was some noise. So okay.
No issue. There is nothing.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
Thank you. Okay. So regulatory affairs in general, as even Dr. Subhash also mentioned in his talk, that people consider it as a very boring field. And actually it is up to you how you take it. And in past, it was considered as like these regulatory professionals, they just work on the papers. They are more of a glorified clerks, and they just do how the drugs are approved, and they don't do anything. They just stack the documents and send it to the agency, and then they just wait. So they are basically postman. But it is indeed not a case. The RA is a very upcoming field, and it has grown way more than how it was in early 2000. And it is new. It is still considered as a new profession, and this has developed the desire of government to protect public health by controlling the quality, safety, and efficacy of the product in areas including pharmaceuticals, veterinary medicines, med devices, pesticides, agrochemicals, cosmetics, food, and complementary medicines. And Dr. Mandal already explained all of these areas wherein you, based on your technical expertise, how much impact you can make. And currently, it is such a hot career in, I would definitely say, for United States and Canada and Europe, and I'm pretty sure it is also there in India, that all the companies, they are looking for this type of an expertise in build. So my recommendation would be that in the universities, we should be introducing these courses. And there are already in US and Canada, I'm aware of that there are some courses that are already offered. However, in India, I'm not sure, but if it is upcoming, then I think it's a good idea to start now, because of the fact that life sciences are going to be so much in for the new type of products, pharmaceuticals, then medical devices, combination products, biopharmaceuticals, biotechnology products. So these are the areas, and regulatory affairs plays a key role, as I'm mentioning in my next slide here, that the RA, the short form is RA, so I'll be referencing it as RA. So it is a bridge between the industry and the government organizations. You are actually the FDA. If you're sitting in any organization and you are representing regulatory affairs, that means you are actually inside FDA sitting in that company. So it's a very responsible position, because once it goes out from your team, it goes directly to FDA. And you need to be very careful that there are no quality issues, there are no safety issues, there are no data integrity issues. And you work very closely with lots of departments that I'll further mention. So this is the important point that I wanted to make. The second is, this is the RA person who will keep a track of ever changing government legislation and current expected standards from all the authorities. And if you are working only specific for US, yes, only for US, but nowadays, every company is looking for global product development. So you need to have like vast knowledge of different jurisdictions. Then they are responsible, as I mentioned, for submitting the registration dossier to FDA. And these dossiers are subjected to very extensive scrutiny during submission till approval. And as a RA professional, you are going to be involved in every process, starting from the drug development until it is submitted, until it is approved, and also the life cycle management. I'll further mention in my slide what kind of roles and responsibilities. But other than this, there is also a most important aspect is that you will provide the strategic and technical advice to stakeholders within your organization in different business disciplines, including R&D, QA, manufacturing, commercial, marketing. So you can make a big impact to the business, and that's where this task gets challenging, because you have to bring all these stakeholders together on the common grounds. So as I mentioned, the regulatory affairs, how internally and externally they have so many customers, and they have to deal with R&D, preclinical, analytical department, government affairs, the project management and portfolio management, all sites where they are manufacturing, QA, QC compliance, marketing, sales, business development, and the most important is agency. So you are the common person with the different areas in the business, and you play a very important role, and it is really exciting. Now in just drug itself, because Dr. Mandal mentioned there are so many other areas than the new product, but in just the drug itself, there are many areas wherein you can gain expertise. So we have here, I just highlighted quite a few of them, but there are even more these days. And as and when the new product line and new technology is coming, there is going to be many more type of these specialization that will be in the market. So the global regulatory affairs, as I mentioned, you need to have a thorough understanding of regulations in the different jurisdictions across the globe. The local regulatory affairs, like if you can have just thorough understanding, more you'll dive deeper into the understanding of Health Canada or India regulations or US FDA or MHRA. Clinical regulatory affairs is more on the clinical front, wherein you do phase 1, 2, 3 trials or bioequivalence for the generic products. There also we have a specific regulatory affairs professionals that are needed these days. The The most upcoming is CMC. I'll explain what CMC stands for. It's a very, very common term used in this area. And these are two technical regulatory affairs. And this is where I would say India makes a lot of impact across the globe, because the kind of background they come from after completing their pharmacy uh, graduations and post graduations, they have a thorough understanding of the CMC, which actually stands for chemistry, manufacturing, and controls. And what are these? That I will explain it to you in my few slides, because this is going to be a lot of discussion on this. And then the labeling. Labeling, people say that. Even I myself am not comfortable, because for me it is too clerical. But you have to have a thorough understanding of labeling regulations, promotional items, what kind of labels you should be having, especially if it is an NDA, then it will come from all your clinical studies. What information should be going? If it is an ANDA, then you will adopt the labeling coming from brand company, and then how there are going to be carve outs depending on the indications that you only can claim because of some patent issues. So it's like a vast field, and if you go into these specialization, you will dive deeper into it and you will get the thorough knowledge, and then you can be really very profound professional. Other than these, there are very important necessary skills that are needed as a regulatory affairs professional. So one, as Dr. Mandal also mentioned, the knowledge of legislation and guidelines. It is very important to have a thorough understanding, so you can strategize around those guidelines, and you can actually guide within your organization what you should be doing to comply to those guidelines. Then a thorough understanding of filing and approval procedure of that specific jurisdiction you are working on. It's very important, because that way you can time your filing and you can time your approval. Then content of application, that briefly Dr. Mandal mentioned. As the CTD, I'm going to go a little bit more details, because it's very little time of 45 minutes to 1 hour to cover these areas. But I'll still bring like a highlight of it, so you can get a feel of it, and then you can further research yourself, because everything is available on internet. You don't have to go to any university for certain of these items. Then the technical skills, as I mentioned, then negotiation skills. These are very important. You have to negotiate within your organization, as well as you have to negotiate with FDA. It's like you are a primary contact with FDA, and you have to negotiate on timelines. You have to negotiate on certain justification. When it goes through review and approval process, you get deficiencies. Sometimes the deficiencies are really not fair. So how do you deal with those? Because you cannot tell them that this is not fair and I'm not doing it. They'll say, okay, fine, no approval. So you need to be very political, and you need to come up with scientific justifications, and you need to be flexible. And these are very important skills that you can develop over a period of time. Then this was also mentioned in Dr. Mandal's slides, but I'll just reiterate the fact again that there are global authorities for drug regulations and approvals. So FDA, CDSCO for India, FDA for US, WHO is also authority which actually provides their guidelines, just like ICH, and some of their guidelines are also adopted by different jurisdictions. Then the European Medicine Agency, EMA, the EDQM, European Directorate for the Quality of Medicines, then the Chinese Food and Drug Administration, CFDA, then the Japanese PMDA, TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration of Australia, and the ICH we already spoke about. Just a little bit more introduction on ICH. Thank you, Dr. Mandal. You have already given the quality guidelines overview, that how many guidelines are there, and they help industry as well as regulators both to understand how you can build in the quality into your medicines. So this International Council of Harmonization was established in 1990 by Japan, US, and Europe, and there are a few more countries that are observer. I have heard recently more countries have joined. And these countries, the representatives, they sit together on a regular frequent basis, and they devise these guidelines on quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary areas. And then these guidelines are further adopted by different regulatory authorities. They were the one who were also involved in coming up the common technical document guideline, which actually helped industry to come up with a global dossier format. Because if a company is working on different jurisdictions, it goes really very difficult to build different dossier for different jurisdictions. So they came up with a common CTD format, which is now mandated to be electronic. So it's called eCTD. And this format is very well adopted by major jurisdictions. So now I'll come on the regulations, how the whole regulation scenario evolved in the US. So in early 90s, there were no regulations. Anything was available in the market. Any claim could be made on those medications. The ingredients declarations were not required. The opioids, cocaine, and other drugs were freely distributed, and they were used in medicines. And this has resulted in a lot of disasters. So those disasters, I'm going to go through the timeline and how different events that has happened in those years, they evolved and they come up. So FDA had to come up with certain changes in the act. So as I mentioned, these are consumer products, and these are not ordinary products. And mostly consumers who consume these products, they don't know when to use these products. They cannot make the decision. They're not able to make a decision. So there are professionals who will make decisions for them. So they don't know when to use, which drugs to use, and how to use, and how it will benefit them, or it will have some risk against their health. So these are different reasons wherein the drug Food and Drug Act evolved, that there were few tragedies that happened in the history of US. So I'll just give a little bit of context. I'll not go into a lot of details, but in 1848, the situation was most of the drugs were just imported. They were all dumped in US, and there were a lot of adulterated drugs that happened. There were incidences happened. So the Drug Importation Act was signed by President in 1848, back in 1848, but it still had some issues because the inspectors that were appointed, they were more political than based on actual qualifications, and there were problems of domestic patent medicines that were not addressed. So there were still issues with that act. Then in 1902, the biologics came into picture. So the biologic drugs came, vaccines came, and there was this tetanus that was discovered, but since it was not regulated, it ended up having some contamination and then there are lots of tragedies happened. This resulted in the Biologics Control Act of July 1902, and this mandated annual licensing and regular inspections for those organizations who were manufacturing vaccines. In 1906, labeling of drugs was a major issue. People were manufacturing all unsafe drugs. They were advertising without any standards. The journalists exposed these abuses. And there was Upton Sinclair, sorry. He actually wrote a book, The Jungle, in which he mentioned how bad the manufacturing conditions were there for meat packers. And this resulted, so there was a lot of national issue happened back then, and this resulted in drafting of a Pure Food and Drugs Act of 1906, which prohibited interstate commerce of unsafe drugs, and it required proper labeling and identified some standards for the drug. In 1938, there was again safety concerns, lack of inspection, inability to control false claims, and the sulfonamide disasters happened. So this sulfonamide disaster, it has a toxic diethylamine solvent, which resulted in 107 deaths, and this was a toxic solvent. So the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938 was introduced, in which they introduced new drug applications, and they had to provide required proof of safety. The authority needed to go for inspection, and they could outlaw the false claims. This then came to 1951. There were prescription issues. Doctors' roles were not clear. Lack of sufficient oversight of some drugs. So that resulted in the Durham-Humphrey Amendment of the 1930 Act. And it defined what a prescription drug is and the roles and responsibilities of a reliable prescription. In 1962, there was again one more disaster happened. The polio vaccine had, in 1955, this happened. The polio vaccine introduced and it was not efficacious, and almost 200,000 children were given this vaccine and they were paralyzed. Then thalidomide disaster happened, in which thousands of died worldwide and many were born without the limbs. And then this again called for a revision of the drug laws, and then the Kefauver-Harris Amendment of 1962 was introduced to ensure that they have to provide proof of effectiveness. The manufacturers have to provide proof of effectiveness. They have to, the FDA took control over the investigation, so they have to provide all necessary information to FDA, and this act also gave authority to regulate advertisements. And the GMPs were established. 1983, then there was serious rare diseases for which none of the manufacturer or the researchers were making any new drug, and that affected. So all those serious rare diseases wherein the population is less than 200,000, there were no drugs on rare diseases because of the finance fact that they don't have enough market. So the Orphan Drug Act came, and this included development of some incentives and grants and market exclusivity. So the brand companies can make some money. Then in 1990, the Safe Medical Device Act and Medical Device Amendment was introduced in 1992, which gave a reporting structure for how the device should be manufactured in their facilities, and control of manufacturer importation and distribution. Then in 1992, the NDAs, the Prescription Drug User Fee Act was published, and then that act mandated the brand manufacturers to give the review fees. Then in 2002, Madufa. So for the new drug, it's called Spadufa, Prescription Drug User Fee Act, and for the medical devices, it is called Madufa, which was mandated 2002 onwards to pay the fees to FDA, which is called Medical Device User Fee and Modernization Act. Then for biologics and ANDAs, it comes as GADUFA and BASUFA. It is mainly the FDA innovated these acts, and it's just for collection of the fees for generic drugs and biological industry for its review. Then I won't go into further on the Drug Quality and Safety and Security Act and the 21st Century Cures Act. The recent act, that 2020 Act, is the CARES Act, which introduced to prevent drug shortages, because when the pandemic situation began in the whole universe, including US, there were lots of drug shortages because the prescription went up very high for certain drugs, where they were filling 30 days, the prescription went up to 90 days filling, and there were drug shortages in the market, the drug shortage in the ICU units. So Trump signed this CARES Act, and that is also now a part of regulation. So when just the drugs, I'm going to go into a little bit of details, but what FD&C, which is the Food and Drug Act, regulate. So as I mentioned, they have the Title I of Code of Federal Regulations. This one is mainly for drugs and food and biologics and cosmetics and medical devices. So FDA mainly regulates food, drugs, biologics, cosmetics, medical devices, and anything that produces dangerous radiations. And different 21 CFR parts You can research yourself. You can find a lot of information. If it is of interest to you, you can go on FDA's website and you will find these. But in general, for the drugs, the laws, regulations, and parts that are mostly referred in the pharmaceutical industry are from the same regulation 21 CFR. You might hear these terms quite often if you work for a pharma or biological device industry. So 11, part 11 is for electronic records and electronic signatures. Part 312 is for investigational new drug application and so forth. Mostly, I would say our focus of today would be on part 314. So I will not go into further details on these slides. But you see, the part 210 and 211 speaks about the current GMP for drugs and finished product. And part 820 is the quality system regulations for the medical device manufacturing facilities. So briefly, the FDA's organizational structure. So they have Office of Commissioner, under which there are various divisions. I will not go into a lot of details into these divisions, but I will just say that there is Office of Regulatory Affairs. Then they have Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. That is the area, that is the office that mostly the drug companies deal with. And the Center for Biologic Evaluation and Research, wherein all biologics manufacturers, they have to deal in that with that department. And then there is tobacco, Center for Tobacco Products, there is Center for Veterinary Medicines, Oncology, and so forth. But the main dealing when it comes to drug is with the CDER, or sometimes it also goes with the combination product if you have a drug device combination. So within CDER, there are various sub-departments, I would say. So they have Office of Regulatory Policy, who makes the MAPAs. They call those internal MAPAs. Then they have Office of Management, Office of Communication, Surveillance and Epidemiology, Office of Compliance, Office of New Drugs. So new drug manufacturers and the brand companies, they have to deal with Office of New Drugs under CDER, and the generics manufacturers and filers, they have to deal with Office of Generic Drugs, which we call OGD. So OND and OGD, these are main offices wherein as a RA professional, you will be dealing with the regulatory project managers in these areas. Now, a brief background of how a drug is developed. This was already explained, I think, in various forums when the presentations were presented in past 1 month or so, because I went to some of your YouTube videos and I figured out that this was explained, but I just say briefly that, and then this was also explained by Dr. Subhash briefly. The number of compounds that are done during basic research is tremendous, and this type of drug development can take from 10 to 15 years, and it goes through quite a rigorous research and testing to ensure the drug is safe and effective. So after the basic research, they identify somewhere between 5,000 to 20,000 candidates. So these are discovered after many years of basic research, and then these 5,000 to 20,000 candidates, they are further the preclinical studies, the studies on animals and toxicological studies are performed on these 250, almost approximately 250 candidates, and that filters down to 5, which goes for final clinical research, and then IND is filed for these, and then phase 1, 2, and 3 trials are performed, and finally one drug comes into. So you will see that how rigorous this whole drug development process is, and it takes years to come up with a new molecule. So as a regulatory affairs professional, you will be involved from the very beginning when the IND needs to be submitted. So after the drug discovery, when preclinical trials are happening within your R&D area, you will be dealing with the R&D folks. You will be understanding what are those
potential candidates who will, for whom you will be submitting an IND. IND is investigational new drug submission. So you will be involved mainly with R&D and FDA, and you will have some meetings with FDA maybe, and then you will do this filing from your team, and then there are going to be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials after the IND is submitted, and based on the outcome of these, then you will be submitting an NDA, and then once this NDA is approved, then it will go through commercial manufacturing, followed by the post-marketing surveillance. So this is like an overall brief introduction of how a drug is developed and how it is approved and how then it is to be managed throughout the life cycle management. Now, some basic terms here. I already mentioned during my talk, brand. So the brand submits NDAs. So these are called new drug applications. This is the FD&C Act 505B1 is actually the act that regulates and provides the guidance. So based on that act, the regulations are made under CFR 21 CFR Part 314 for the new drug application. Then the generics are called abbreviated new drug applications. They are called ANDA. And then the FD&C Act 505J or 505B2. These are the act under which the ANDA is filed. ECTD, I already mentioned common technical document. QBD is quality by design, and I'll briefly introduce you to this concept when we will speak further on the requirement for NDAs and NDAs. And CMC, I mentioned chemistry, manufacturing, and control, which is quite an in area in the drug industry. So the new drug applications are submitted either for a new molecular entity or for a new formulation of a previously approved drug, or a new combination of 2 or more drugs, or it is for a new indication for already marketed drugs. So these are the areas, if you have, then you can file an NDA. The ANDAs are actually submitted for generic drugs. So the requirements for ANDA is that an NDA must be already previously approved and listed as a reference listed drug in the Orange Book and drugs at FDA. So you cannot file an ANDA for which there is no brand exist, basically. So you have to have a brand to file a generic version, and to do so, you need to demonstrate the therapeutic equivalence of your generic version versus the brand product. So therapeutic equivalence is actually 2 categories wherein you have to demonstrate the equivalency. One is the pharmaceutical equivalence, and the second is the bioequivalence. So what pharmaceutical equivalence is? It is that it is the same ingredient as brand, it is the same dosage form as brand, it is the same route of administration as brand, it is identical strength or concentration, and it may differ in characteristics like shape or some excipients or packaging. However, it should have the other 4 categories exactly same as brand. And the bioequivalence is that you should demonstrate. This is the only clinical study that goes in the ANDA. It's to demonstrate that these 2 drugs they have the same rate and extent when they become available at the site of the action. Now, the requirement for NDA versus ANDA. So NDA will have the chemistry, manufacturing, control sections. It will also have labeling section, inspections, and exactly same sections will be there for your ANDA. The difference lies only in the clinical studies, because NDA will be more complex. It will have the animal studies, so all your animal studies, clinical studies with the human subjects, and the bioavailability. And in ANDA, it will be replaced with the bioequivalence. So these animal studies are your preclinical studies that will be part of NDA as well. And this is a common technical document structure. as I mentioned previously, that this common technical document is a format, is a template of a dossier. And since it goes in electronic format, it is called eCTD. And this actually has 5 modules. So module 1 is mainly administrative, which is going to be different for different jurisdictions, because there are some administrative forms, patent information, labeling information, some letters of references. Those will go in module 1. Module 2 is basically completely the summary of your module 3, 4, and 5. So there are 5 modules. Module 2 is summary, and module 3 is your quality information, wherein most of your CMC information goes. Module 4 is your information, wherein you will have the animal studies, if there are any. So in case of generics, there are very few submissions wherein we refer module 4, because mostly it is some literature references that we mention in module 4. And module 5 is your clinical study. So as a RA professional, you need to have a thorough understanding of each of these modules for the specific jurisdictions you are working on. And then you can, once you have I would say the administrative understanding followed by a technical understanding, because these modules are very complex modules. And depending on the dosage form, the type of molecule that you're working, if it is a sterile product, non-sterile product, it is a transdermal or a solid dose or a capsule, or a liquid dose or injectable, these modules will have different requirements. So a thorough understanding which comes from the background that you are coming from, so going to have that thorough understanding is not going to be difficult for you once you are into it. Again, the review process. So the NDA, as I mentioned, they are highly complex submissions, and mostly approximately on an average 25s are approved every year, as opposed to ANDAs, which are approximately over 500 approved every year by FDA. The NDA belongs to just one drug, one application, as opposed to ANDA, because if one NDA is approved, then we can have multiple applications for against that reference listed drug. So multiple companies will have multiple applications filing it. And the user fee is to be paid for both of them. Now I'll go into some high level details on the review process of the NDA, the review and approval process of the NDA, followed by the timelines of different stages of review, followed by the review process and approval process for ANDA and the timelines. So as I mentioned previously, preclinical studies is your drug development animals tested. Once you have come up with your 5 sort of candidates that can go for further clinical studies, at that stage, the IND is submitted. So here you will be involved as a RA professional, as I mentioned before. And then once the phase 1, 2, and 3 studies are over, and you have a final NDA available to be submitted, at that time, you will do a review meeting with FDA, followed by filing in the eCTD format to FDA. Once it is filed, it goes through screening, then it goes to thorough technical review of your clinical as well as your quality information. And then the labeling is reviewed, followed by a facility inspection is performed. Generally, it is called PAI, prior approval inspection, followed by, once everything is cleared, then you will receive your drug approval. Once the drug is approved and you commercialize it in the market, then you come into understanding the post-market requirement, that how regularly you have to make changes. Then every change has to go through FDA, depending on the category. Then your regular safety updates, that will also be submitted to FDA regularly. And there are tons of guidelines published by FDA. So if you want to really learn about all of these, and if you want to really go through any specific area, you can really Google, you will go on FDA's website and you can get those guidance documents that are already published for industry. So the timelines. So basically, the total review timeline is 10 months for non-priority product, and it is 6 months for priority. And if the molecule is going to be, or if the NDA is going to be priority or not, for that you file a submission with FDA to have a priority status. You request FDA that you want a priority status, and there are MAPAs, the Manual of Policies and Procedures within FDA's website, wherein they guide you on what basis you can designate your product as a priority, and based on that, if it qualifies, you can request for a priority review, and once it is granted, then you will have a 6 months review timeline. Otherwise, for general, it is going to be 10 months review timeline, and that too when it is a one cycle review and approval. If there are major issues, then it could be different. So once on day 0, when the application is submitted, it goes through screening. And screening, it is mostly administrative, and they have their own MAPA in place wherein they will review it, and they will ensure that all necessary elements in the eCTD are there in the right places and in the right format. Then it will be either accepted or you will be issued a refuse to receive. If it is refused to receive, then you have to go back again and refile it. Then once it is finally acknowledged and received, FDA gives you documents called acknowledgement, and in that they will say, okay, so we have received and we acknowledge that this is your date of filing, and here is our PDUFA date. So the Prescription Drug User Fee Act mandates FDA also to give them a timeline based on 10 months review. So they will give you certain timelines on the day when they accept your filing. After that, once that triggers, then they have this 4 months of window wherein they will start reviewing your application. They will do a thorough review during second month onwards until I would say 6 to 7 months. And in between, you will receive certain information requests, and these are again time-bound requests. So you will have to respond within 7 days, or within 4 days, or within 30 days, depending on the amount of deficiencies that have been received. So during that, FDA continues their review, and once a discipline review of that specific, for example, it's a bio review, or it's a chemistry review, or it's a quality review, it's a labeling review. Once that complete review is done, then they might issue a discipline review letter. Around 3 months for the priority project, which is a midpoint of the approval timeline, or around 5 months, which is again a mid-cycle meeting, is so around 5 months for the general product, or for a priority product, it is 3 months. At that time, they will conduct a mid-cycle meeting in which FDA will give that specific sponsor that what are those issues if we have encountered, what is going well, what is not going well. So you will get a good feed of, if your application is looking good or you will have some major concerns. So once that is done and there are no major concerns, then there will be a wrap-up meeting on month 8 for the non-priority, and for month 5 for the priority products, followed by the official action, which will be around 9 to 10 months, or 5 to 6 months for priority, and then your approval would be granted. So during this whole review cycle, as a RA professional, you will be thoroughly involved in all the communications that are happening between R&D, between commercial, between site, so facility, and FDA. And you will be involved in responding to those concerns from FDA. You will be involved in giving advice to all the stakeholders within your organization that what is going well, what is not going well, and based on your expertise, you will also negotiate with FDA on certain scientific justifications. So this is for the NDA review timelines. Now comes the NDA review. Very interesting. This is the area where mostly I was involved since the time I started my regulatory affairs career. So once the applicant has completed its development, then they have gathered all the necessary stability data of 6 months. They have demonstrated the pharmaceutical equivalence and bioequivalence, and then their ECTD dossier is ready. They will file this. So you will be involved in dealing with R&D and understanding how different CTD modules are coming along and review those. So what happens is when these different areas within your organization, they start to submit your documents, they are working in their own silos. And you are the one who have a choice. Either you stack all of them and just submit it, or you review those documents, understand them, be FDA of your organization, understand them, and see if they are all gelling with each other, if they are making sense or not. There is consistency, there is enough amount of information, there is no extra information. Because if something is not needed, don't submit, because if you submit, FDA has to review it, and if they don't understand, unnecessary questions will be, you are inviting unnecessary questions. So it is very important to understand your product from the beginning. And as a RA professional, if the companies are really involved in having a good quality submission, they will definitely involve you from the very beginning of the process when they are starting to select the drug substance suppliers, the excipient suppliers, the component suppliers, packaging, everything. It will go through, you will provide your expertise, and by the time the submission is ready in the CTD format, you will have a thorough understanding of what is going in this dossier. So once it goes, along with technical expertise, you need to also understand there are specific format requirement, because if it is submitted to FDA, a very good technically sound submission, but there are some administrative glitches through electronic format, then it is of no use, because FDA can't review. So they will issue you a refuse to receive letter. So you need to also make sure that all those electronic technical elements are also built in. The software is compatible, and the documents, the PDF documents, are in right format. So this is also like one of the upcoming area wherein different companies, they have their expertise established in their IT department, who has a good understanding of ECTD. Then once it is submitted, if there is any major concerns based on their RTR guidance, there is a refuse to receive guidance by FDA, and if some of those elements are not made in your dossier, then it will be rejected. Rejection means a lot of money, because once it is rejected, they will issue you only 60% of your fees, which is like 200,000 right now approximately for one ANDA, and so $200,000 you will get only 40% of it, 60% will be lost. So you need to make sure that there are no refuse to receive, and that's where your screening expertise is come into picture. Then this is, once it is acceptable, you will get a GDUFA gold date in the acknowledgement letter, similar to PDUFA gold date that you get in the NDA. And then once it is accepted, you have your GDUFA gold date. Now you start monitoring the questions then, because within 2 months you will start to get some questions, the sample request. So you have to be on the top of all the requests that are coming from FDA. And now, since GDUFA 2 came into picture, these are all time-bound requests. So you need to make sure that you are not missing any timeline. Otherwise, if you have an information request, for example, so the difference between information request versus a complete response letter is that if information request is again time bound, but it has a minimum time of maybe 7 days or 30 days. So within that time, FDA is continuing to review, and there is no impact to your GDUFA gold date, which is of 10 months. But if you don't respond, then it will be converted into a complete response, which FDA will stop their review and they will send you a letter, and then it will be 1 year of timeline to respond. And then your submission approval would be probably delayed by almost 18 months to 2 years, because you have 1 year to respond, and then once you respond, then FDA, depending on the criticality and whether it is minimum, so major, moderate, or critical, depending on that criticality, you will have a review timeline. So there is going to be another GDUFA goal date. So you missed the first date and it will be delayed. So you need to make sure that you respond on time and your submission is a quality document to get one cycle review. So once it is accepted, then it will go to different review disciplines. Different CTD modules will go to different review disciplines. So bioequivalence area will do their own review. Labeling will perform their review. Chemistry and micro review will continue simultaneously, and same thing with the plant inspection. So they will, if it depends. It's in FDA's discretion. If they decide to do a prior approval inspection, they will schedule that. So once all of these areas are satisfied, then they will create sort of an action letter, and they will approved. If it is not approvable because of any reasons, they will issue a major CR, and then you have to work on that CR. You have to provide your responses, and in that case, the approval would be delayed. So timelines here, I actually spoke already on the other slide, but here is just more of a visual sort of a review timeline for you guys to understand. So once application is received, it goes through initial screening, and the division of filing review issues around day 60. So the timeline as per their guidance is 2 months, but generally within 45 days to 55 days, we have seen screening screening deficiencies are coming in. So sometimes if they are minor, then they will just issue like an email deficiency. And if they are major, then it could be a refuse to receive. So once it is accepted, then they start reviewing this application. So from day 60 to until day 180. So anywhere between 2 to 6 months of your filing, this application is reviewed, and there are going to be information letters requests. If a discipline review is complete, they decide to issue a final letter. So they will issue a discipline review letter, which is called DRL. A discipline review letter means the review of that specific discipline is complete. And after all of this determination is made, then they will inform you that your quality review is substantially complete, and if there are any pending deficiencies, you will respond within day 180 to 210, and then they will have their time to review those deficiencies in the next 2 months or so. If there are IR and DRL, then yeah, within 2 months or so. And if there is a CR, then this whole timeline is going to be, as I mentioned, delayed for another 1.5 years or so, because 1 year you will take to respond, and then between 8 to 10 months, FDA will take their time to review, and then they will take an action. So you will assign another GDUFA goal date. Overall, if the ANDA quality is really good, it will be 10 months of review and approval. And as an RA professional, you can make a big impact in getting this approval quicker, because you will negotiate with FDA. You will make sure that the review is going on time, as well as the quality is already built into the submission. So when you are attending those cross-functional discussions, you will provide all necessary inputs. So when FDA is basically requesting you to do a quality by design development, and when you have a good understanding of this philosophy, that how you build in the quality by design into your submission, and this quality by design, you can have good understanding by reading through the ICH guidance. You go through Q8, Q9, and Q10. I think these are very good guidance to understand how these products are developed and how you can build in design to ensure the quality and safety of the product, and you can make an impact in getting an early approval. So in conclusion, both industry and the regulators, they play a key role in bringing the high quality product in the affordable price in the market. The fact is, in these days when the new products, the brand products are super expensive, not everybody can afford. FDA is really encouraging industry to come up with the generic products, and that is also visible when in 2010 or so they have introduced guidance to bring biosimilars in the market, because the biological products are very expensive to afford, and if you have like an affordable similar product, why not to have it made available for the public who can't afford these expensive products. So again, the second point is the quality, safety, and efficacy. They are very important for any drug in the market, and they actually help in understanding regulators to evolve and make new regulations and act to again ensure the safety of the citizens. As I mentioned, as an RA professional, again, I would reiterate that please have a deep understanding of the product development and the processes, starting from inception stage to the final stages towards filing, to ensure the successful timely approval and also ensure the life cycle management. Because your task doesn't end when it is just approved and is commercialized. There's a new life begins for that product, that once it is commercialized, then we start to think about making changes to that product. And every change, depending on how critical it is, it has to again go through FDA. So once we get the approval, then depending on the strategy within the organization, you want to change your drug substance supplier now because of all these Chinese issues. After COVID, there is supply chain issues. Now you don't have some certain excipients available. So what will you do? You will have to make certain changes to your product, and those changes again have to go through the review cycle. So life cycle management and its understanding and how post-approval changes are handled by FDA, that also you can go on FDA's website and you can understand. Then the thorough understanding and knowledge of management of drug submission and approval process. So what are those timelines? What are those quality elements that you have to build in your product? There are ample of literature available on FDA's website or any other jurisdiction for that matter. You go to Health Canada, you go to EMEA, you go to TGA. If you are interested in specific jurisdiction, you can go on their website and you will find a tons amount of information on their process and on their requirements. And I would say to start with ICH is the best place to start, because most of these jurisdictions, they adopt the ICH guidance. For example, some of stability guidance is just copy paste FDA guidance from ICH. So if you have good understanding of ICH, you will win. And again, switch from reactive to proactive approach, resulting in a lot of risk-based assessments. So it is very good to understand what are those risks and how are you mitigating those risks when you are dealing with any of those issues, or especially in generic industry, because they have a low-cost product. Obviously, they have to compromise in certain aspects, and we need to weigh that if you're compromising on quality, how it is mitigated, so that even if there are some elements not there, but you have a proper justification that it is still equivalent to brand product and it is still as safe and as effective for the consumers. So with that, I'm ready to take questions. So thank you. I hope you have enjoyed. And any questions, please.
Thank you, ma'am. It was indeed a very informative session that we had. And we had a few questions from our participants that I would like to ask you.
Sure.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, the first one of the questions that was asked was, before the pandemic time, FDA used to take a lot of time for approval of various drugs. But after that, the time has reduced a bit. Then, what is the exact process that was curtailed to reduce the time?
Sorry, you were broken just in between. So what I understood is that before the pandemic, FDA was taking longer time to review and approve the submission as opposed to after the pandemic began.
Yes.
And what what triggered that?
No, not what triggered that. If that statement was true, then what processes were curtailed in order to make that process faster?
Okay, so thank you. That's an excellent question, and I would say the review process and timelines, they were until 2017. They were as per GDUFA 1. So GDUFA 1 was effective from 2012 to 2017. From 2017, GDUFA 2 became effective. And what this means is uh, whenever there is a new GDUFA coming into picture, so every GDUFA period is a 5 years period. And before that 5 years period, the industry and FDA, they come together on various forums, they meet frequently, and they come up with all the issues that they are encountering and how they both can help bring the cheaper products to market. And that's when FDA published a lot of guidance under GDUFA 2. They committed to have a 10 months of review or 6 months of priority review for both ANDA and ANDAs. There is policies that were made to have priority reviews even for ANDAs. There were FDA Reauthorization Act that came into picture from 2017, and under that act they made commitment to a lot of guidances, and we see that those are really regularly coming. FDA is working on lots of guidances. They have hired a lot of employees to have this process smoother and faster. You see lots of now webinars are there. Even these days, like 4 days webinar is going on right now, which started day before yesterday, and tomorrow it is going to end, and it is free webinars are there. So these are the initiatives that FDA has taken, and FDA is really trying hard to bring the product faster to the market. They are helping industry, and that statement, I would say, partially correct, but the review was faster after 2017 when GDUFA 2 came into picture, because at that time there are lots of timelines came. There are lots of differences that are there between GDUFA 1 and 2, and that's all together, 1 hour discussion on what are those changes that FDA has made. However, having said that though, after pandemic, FDA realized that certain drugs, I don't think they are acting fast on all of those submissions, reviews, and approval, but certain drugs that could be a potential drug shortage, they are trying to review them faster and approve. And if that's also, I think, one of the element that was addressed in the CARES Act, which was recently made early this year. Like I would say March, April, the CARES Act came into picture, and in that act, they have provisions of how to ensure that there is no drug shortage in the market.
Okay, ma'am. So you were measuring some timelines. When did GDUFA 2 took over 1, and you were talking about the act that took in March and April. So does FDA communicate all these changes in a certain platform, or everybody has to go visit the website regularly to see the updates that were happening?
Okay, very good that you have asked. I would encourage all of listeners to go on FDA's website and subscribe for their emails, because they send to their updates and news every day to whoever has subscribed their emails. So these communications are always coming through emails to everybody, whoever is subscribed.
What is the difference between 505B and 505J?
Okay, so 505B, these are FD&C Act, Food and Drug Act provisions. 505B is for NDAs, new drug applications. So under 505B, there are some regulations that you have to comply to meet to NDA's requirement. And 505J is for the abbreviated new drug applications. So all of this CTD module that comes into picture, it all originates from there. What are those act and what are those act demanding to have in these specific submissions? So if it is for a brand, then there are different requirements. So it is regulated through 505J, 505B, and for ENDA it is 505J.
Thank you so much. So these were the questions that we had for you, and we
My
thank you for-
pleasure. Thank you. And
We
again,
thank-
I appreciate the time that everybody took to listen, and I hope it was educative for them. And anytime in future, if any questions, please reach out to me. Here is my these are the references, and here is my contact information. So reach out to me, and I'll try to help as much as I can. So thank you once again to, especially to Dr. Venkateshwara, who was involved in communicating to me on timely and making sure that there are no technical issues. And I really appreciate his help in this matter. So thanks.
You're welcome, madam.
All right. Bye and good luck to everybody.
Thank you, madam.
Lastly, I would request one of my colleague, Mr. A. Chakravarti, to please propose the vote of thanks.
A very good evening to all. I feel it a great privilege to propose vote of thanks for the international webinar on drug regulatory affairs, Indian and the US scenarios, jointly organized by Education Division and Regulatory Affairs Division of Indian Pharmaceutical Association (IPA) and Chebrolu Hanmaya Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences (CHIPS). First, I would like to thank Dr. T.V. Narayana, President IPA, for being the patron of this webinar and gracing us with his opening remarks. I would also like to thank Dr. R. Srinivas, President CHIPS, and Dr. C.N. Srinivas, Secretary and Correspondent CHIPS, for their support and encouragement in conducting this international webinar. Next, I thank the Vice Presidents of IPA, Dr. Subhash C. Mandal, Chairman, Regulatory Affairs Division, and Dr. S. Vidyadhara, Chairman, Education Division, for collaborating and convening this webinar. I profoundly thank the speakers of this international webinar, Dr. Subhash C. Mandal, Chairman, Regulatory Affairs Division of IPA, and Mrs. Maduri Gupta, Associate Director, Regulatory Affairs, Aviva Drug Delivery Systems, USA, for giving us your time and enlightening participants about the importance and the Indian and the US scenarios of regulatory affairs. Your talks gave us the perspective of the responsibility that RA holds in the pharmaceutical industry. Thank you very much. Next, I thank the organizing committee, Dr. Pramod Kumar, Dr. B.V. Rao, Dr. Raghav Kalyan, staff and students of CHIPS for their efforts and support in making this webinar successful. Last but not least, I thank all the 709 participants who registered and followed our webinar. With your participation and encouragement, we'll come up with more informative webinars in the future. Thank you, everyone.